My name is Luke Cooper, and I'm embarking on a journey to share my story of triumph and leadership with anyone facing hardship in life. When I was just 12 years old, I had to testify against my own father for attacking my mother. He ultimately received 20 years, and when he was led away to prison, a part of my adolescence walked away with him. Just 11 years later, I would be graduating law school, and based on my mom's forgiveness and desire for closure, in my first act as a lawyer, I would successfully argue for his release.
So I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Bridgeport is a place in the 1980s was a place of tremendous violence and drug addiction and just transition. Great city, a lot of great people, but it was certainly a tough place to grow up in the 1980s. And my mom, she really did the best that she could in terms of raising us and, working multiple jobs. I mean, my mom is a great woman, 4 foot tall, maybe, but just did her best to give us everything that we needed in life. So part of my life, we grew up in a project housing called Pequanix Projects in Bridgeport. It was a very, very tough time, especially tough time of our lives. There was a lot of, drug addiction and violence in that environment that we grew up in. But I always knew that there was more for me on the other side, that there was something else out there for me. I really couldn't define it. I really had no clear picture of what that was. Education was a big part of our lives growing up. My mom had a strong focus on making sure that we had great education. I mean, she understood that my sister and I were different individuals and that we needed, different things, and she tried to accommodate us as best she could. My mom worked multiple jobs, to make sure that we could afford the education that we had. And it was an interesting time of our lives because I pretty much lived in 2 different worlds. Going to school at a prep school in suburban Connecticut, and then coming home every day to Bridgeport. You can only imagine the vast difference between those 2 worlds. One, with a lot of violence and just your typical urban blight that you see in a lot of large cities, and then another where the kids were fairly well off and had the ability to avoid some of the things that we had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I remember seeing those skinny hallways with graffiti all over them and just reeking of all kinds of foul things, and understanding that there was something more for me despite what I saw. And my mom was a big proponent of that. I remember fondly one Saturday, my mom just on a whim gets me and my sister and takes us on an airplane ride, a little tiny Cessna plane. When I was up in that airplane, despite all the violence and trauma of the environment that my mom was doing her very best to get us out of, I understood that as I flew over my buildings and parts of the city I grew up in, that my problems and the environment and all the challenges that we were dealing with as kids, 11-year-olds, were insignificant. I knew that there was something more for me, and I knew that the world was much bigger than the problems associated with the environment that we came up in. So that was a very pivotal part of our lives. So a big part of me becoming a lawyer initially was based on my grandmother's vision for my life. She loved the series Matlock and wanted me to become a lawyer. And I sort of embraced that very early on, and it led a lot of my later decisions in life. So one of the lessons I talk to young people about is that life is not about happiness. And I specifically use the example of me in law school. I routinely stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning studying, criminal law, evidence, and all these subjects that were part of the general law school curriculum. And there was no happiness in that. So where you are is not who you are. Not allowing yourself to be defined by the circumstances from which you come. Because no matter what you come from, you can achieve so much more. And with that comes a sense of understanding that your business life is not summed up entirely by X's and O's and your profit and loss statement. But who you are and your personal story and the hardships that you had to endure ultimately lead into the successfulness and the way you deal with the challenges that you will face in business. So what that situation taught me was that the level of effort that you put into whatever dream, whatever thing you want to accomplish in life should never diminish. You should work hard not only to achieve that goal, but to reestablish and identify new targets, new goals in life beyond the one that you established. And it provides a great backdrop to one of the success principles that I share with some of the people I talk to, that life is not about happiness. It's not about your happiness. And that happiness is just a byproduct of you achieving those goals in life that you want to achieve. And so while there was very little happiness in studying till 4 o'clock in the morning, there was an immense amount of happiness when I graduated law school and then being able to share that moment with my mom and my family and seeing the look of pride on her face and me accomplishing that goal. And all the principles I share with people are things that I try to live by. And one of the things I share with them is that it's important to live these things to the fullest as best they can for the rest of their lives. I've had this same discussion with one of my close cousins. He grew up in the same household as us. We grew up together playing and fighting and doing all the things that normal kids do. And these are principles that I shared with him many years prior to this, but unfortunately he was not able to fully realize that unfortunately he never really fully realized that this was something that he needed to continue to do his entire life. And so my cousin Daryl was shot and killed holding his 18-month-old baby because he never really understood the great things in life that he could accomplish as well. And that my success in life could have been his success, and my success in life is no anomaly. Success is defined by the level of hardship that you have to endure. Many people go through life and never accomplish much of anything. But the ones who face challenging circumstances, like mine or different from mine, have a unique opportunity to accomplish great things in life. And whether that might be something as practical as turning around a business or overcoming an environment filled with drug addiction and poverty, you can accomplish all of the goals that your mind can think of. Everything that you need to achieve them is already inside of you.
When I talk to young men and women, I remind them that life is not about happiness. I tell them that happiness is fleeting and merely a byproduct of working hard to achieve your goals.